clock is ticking. Today's world is not the same as the one we used to know. In the face of new challenges, we must continue looking forward to find the best solutions so no one is left behind. We have to rethink. Rebuild. Redesign. While we all have a collective vision that allows us to see beyond our limitations, we will continue bringing new ideas to overcome new and old problems, inspiring people to construct solid networks based on social participation, creating environments beyond our reality, and visiting places we did not even imagine before. We are innovation. We chose this vocation to teach, guide, and inspire. Paradoxically, while we do this, we continue learning. We team up in the teaching-learning process to trigger innovation. We are teachers, and we are determined to educate no matter what, at school, home, any place, and with any platform. With one or multiple audiences, we will continue to strengthen the teaching-learning process, innovating and shaping the new era of education.
Hello, good morning to everybody. Welcome to this third day of the 8th edition of the International Conference on Educational Innovation. It is a pleasure that you're joining us. We remind you that you can listen to the mastery events in both the original language and the translation. You can select this option in the CIIE app. Also, we would like to remind you all that you can send your comments and questions through the chat. And for the ones who are here with us, we have 2 stand microphones on the sides of the room. Now, we will start the Master Panel, Global Learning Panel, sharing the vision for online internationalization. We have the honor to count on with the participation of
Ainhoa Oribe Otalora, Vice Rector for Internationalization, Chair Professor in Politics and Administration, CEU, San Pablo University. Joseph Wong, University of Toronto's Vice President International, Rose and Ralph Halbert Professor of Innovation, Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, Professor Department of Political Science, and as facilitator, Ignacio de la Vega, Associate Provost for Academic Affairs, Faculty and Internationalization of Tecnológico de Monterrey. We give a warm welcome, and now we give the word to Ignacio.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Ainhoa, Joe, Ainhoa from my beloved Spain. I'm from Spain, Ainhoa, in case you didn't know. Joe from Canada. Good to have you here. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to this panel, Sharing the Vision for Online Internationalization. And this is part of the program that we are offering today, the Global Learning Track at our conference on international innovation and education. I wish to thank our Vice Rectory for International Affairs for promoting and highlighting these initiatives at Tecnológico de Monterrey and at the conference itself. And we just fostered or started a new initiative within Tech. It's called Tech Global, and it's about fostering our quite large internationalization programs. So in this panel, we're going to be talking about the challenges brought by the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we had some, and the options of internationalization through technology and how this is impacting in our educational strategies, sharing with our guests how is it possible to boost through technology international experiences for our faculty, for our students, and for the community at large. As it was remarked before, we're receiving questions and comments at the live stream chat. I will be connected through WhatsApp to the questions, so please go ahead and ask questions to both Joe and Ainhoa. So let me again introduce Ainhoa Uribe Otalora. She's the Vice Rector for Internationalization at CEU, San Pablo, located in my hometown, Madrid, Spain. She's also a chair professor in political science at the University CEU, San Pablo. She's been studying quite a lot in the last few years, holds 2 PhD degrees, one in political science, another one in law, and also a double master's degree, one in international humanitarian aid, and a second one in gender and equal opportunities. Professor Uribe is leading the project of internationalization at CEU, San Pablo University, serving as Vice Rector, supporting strategic alliances, international mobility, all the collaborative online international learning. We're going to be focusing and talking a lot about this type of projects, student recruitment, international research, and other international programs at the university. She has a broad experience in teaching, researching, management at the university, and has been serving as Vice Rector, Deputy Vice Rector, Vice Dean, and also academic coordinator of dual degrees at CEU. CEU, by the way, is one of our big allies in Spain and in Europe in faculty collaboration and also in student exchange. And throughout the pandemic, only through 2021, 290 students from both San Pablo and Tech were benefited, connected in the same classroom with this type of online internationalization. So welcome, Ainhoa. Thank you for being here. Let me now move into Joseph Wong. Joseph is also a good friend of Tecnológico de Monterrey. He serves as Vice President for International in the University of Toronto, where he also holds the Ross and Ralph Holbert Professor of Innovation, the Chair of Innovation at the Munk School of Global Affairs. Joe is a professor of political science in the Faculty of Arts and Science. He holds the Canada Research Chair in Health and Democracy and Development for 2 terms, 2006 to 2016. He's the author of many academic articles, several books, including Healthy Democracies, Welfare Politics in Taiwan and South Korea, and Betting on Biotech, Innovation, and the Limits of Asia's Developmental State, both published by Cornell University Press. Inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals and in collaboration with the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, Professor Wong founded the REACH Alliance. Actually, Tec de Monterrey just reached 1 year ago the REACH Alliance through a center we call FAIR, focusing on inclusive finance, also under the umbrella of MasterCard, doing research, as the REACH Alliance does, in the pathways to success, also with innovative programs to reach the world's most marginalized population. Joseph is a graduate of McGill University and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Very happy to have you here with us. I'm looking here because I see them in the Zoom to my left. So thank you, Joe, Ainhoa, for having you here. One last comment about Joe. He's been teaching with us for the last couple of years, collaborating with Tech faculty, Professor Gustavo Merino in Campus Santa Fe in one of our global classrooms. This year, we're offering 120 global classrooms in our different disciplines and with different international partners. So this could be part of the conversation. So let's start with the panel. Joe, Ainhoa, since 2018, before the pandemic, Tec Monterrey launched an online internationalization program. Of course, throughout the pandemic, the program has become a flagship of our institution, allowing students to keep international, to network, to learn, to cooperate in an international project with different partners all over the world. So thinking about your history at CEU de Monterrey, Ainhoa, let me ask, in your university, how these online internationalization projects and ideas were born, and when? Thank you for the answer.
Good morning from Spain. We are very happy to be with you today. Well, in our case, I don't know if it was the providence, but the truth is that we started working on online internationalization in September 2019. So it was a few months before the pandemic. And we were very lucky when we decided to start this new activity, because in fact, it made a great change when the pandemic came. What we did in September 2019 was changing the traditional vice-rectorate for international relations that we had, and recall it and rename it as Vice-Rectorate for Internationalization and Digital Transformation. And this was a key pillar because then we had the support of our managers, the support of the rector, the principals of the university were formally supporting this idea of digital transformation. And then we decided to work on two pillars. On one hand, we started working last year on a new way of internationalization abroad, which means going forward from the traditional exchange mobilities. And the other pillar was internationalization at home, which is what we are going to talk about. But in the case of the internationalization abroad, we decided that we needed to create alliances, consortiums for innovation, that we needed new partners. And this strategy of finding new partners for new products, it was also very useful later when we had to find partners for coiling. And in the case of the internationalization at home, we do not only coil. What we have decided is to give also the students the possibility to add additional certificates online to the degrees that they are doing. So we have different strategies that have to do with online internationalization. In one case, it's an experience in the classroom, a short experience. In other cases, it's a longer experience that may take 1 semester, 2 semesters, and it may even end with a new certificate. And recently we made the last change, which is to divide and change and rename again this vice-rectorate. And this vice-rectorate today is just the vice-rectorate for internationalization, because we have created one vice-rectorate for digital transformation to give a transversal support to all the units at FEU, because we think that it's not only a question of internationalization, it's also a question of giving a support to any vice-rectorate that is working right now at FEU. So now we have a comprehensive strategy, which I think that is making the great change and the difference in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll come back in a second with one question about this comment, but let me move to Joe. So Joe, similar question. How about you guys at Toronto University? I mean, pretty international by definition, the city, the university itself. How has this been working throughout the pandemic?
First of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of this conversation. It really is an honor to be speaking with colleagues at Tech, as well as speaking with colleagues in Spain. And it speaks to, I think, the real international flavor that is driving this Congress. Much like our colleagues in Spain, we, in a very fortuitous way, we began to think about online internationalization before the pandemic, although the pandemic, of course, accelerated it. At the University of Toronto, despite, of course, Toronto being a very global city and attracting people from all around the world, I have to say that our international mobility numbers, that is to say, the students engaged in international learning opportunities, physically engaging, was actually lower than one might have expected. We were actually around 16% of our undergraduates having an international learning experience by the time they graduate, which of course pales in comparison to our colleagues in Europe, Australia, and so forth. So even before the pandemic, we had made a concerted effort to grow that number, and we were actually on track to having almost 1/3 of our undergraduates having an international learning experience by the time they graduate. We were on track to hit this by 2022. And we know that international learning experiences have an overwhelming positive impact on our graduates' lives, right? If you look at any of the data, students who have had an international learning experience are more likely to engage in entrepreneurial activities, are more likely to engage in international careers, are more likely to be able to engage in professional careers and succeed. Indeed, are more likely to graduate on time as well. So there are a whole host of reasons why we wanted to facilitate this. And so we began to implement a process, what we call academic integration planning, which is a concerted effort to work with academic divisions to start planning into their programs, into their undergraduate majors, international learning experiences, so that when an undergraduate student first arrives at the University of Toronto, they can begin to see, oh, in my second year or in my third year, I can have this kind of experience, and it's built right into their actual degree program. That was very, very helpful, because what that forced our chairs and our faculty instructors to do was to actually start thinking about the sequencing of the learning experience and building in that international learning experience as part of the degree program. I say that served us well because now suddenly we were in the midst of a pandemic and planes were no longer traveling and our students were no longer able to get themselves into the field or into other countries and partnering with institutions and so forth. And that's when we accelerated the development of what we've called the global classroom. And on one hand, it builds on the existing work we'd already invested in terms of our technological platforms. The University of Toronto has participated in the MOOC movement, so these online courses. This was always part of our arsenal of teaching. Never central, but certainly something that we had some experience in. But we really began to think, how do we leverage our partnerships, including, for instance, with Tech de Monterrey, our partnerships to collaborate in the development of international learning experiences directly into the course, leveraging our online platforms. And so, as you point out, Ignacio, I have a very dear friend, Gustavo Marino at Tech de Monterrey. We began to talk, and we said, well, why don't we just combine our classes together, right? I mean, you're interested in political economy and public policy. I'm interested in political economy and public policy. I live in Canada. I have students from around the world. You're in Mexico. You have students primarily from Mexico, but also from around the world. Why don't we collaborate and intentionally build a really robust international learning experience for all of our students? And that's how the global classroom movement began in various quarters around the University of Toronto. And our office, the Office of the VP International, has since now supported the development of more of these kinds of courses. In this past year, we funded 50 of these. And those are the ones that we have funded, and we expect and anticipate there are probably a couple hundred of these courses now online and operating at the U of T. So it was essentially an impulse that was always there, but the pandemic has really accelerated the development of this.
Thank you, Joe. That is an important comment. We tend to think that the pandemic brought us into online internationalization, into other types of use of technology, into the importance of digital education, and definitely this happened before. And we were all prepared, getting ready, investing in technology and platforms, in strategies to foster, in this case, our internationalization through technology. I was serving as dean at the EGADE and the business school at Tec de Monterrey. We had a very large online program with one of our consortiums, GINA, and that made possible for a large percentage of our population to take part in global weeks to foster this cooperation. That was way before the pandemic. Definitely, the pandemic has been accelerating and changing our mindset. And I have a question on this in a minute, but I'd like to go back to, I know you were mentioning about developing sort of a model in which you accept some credits from your students that are taking international learning in some platforms or other universities. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Maybe give an example. We're talking about...
Yeah, we have two strategies. One is what we call FEO Global Campus, and the other one is FEO Global Classroom. The FEO Global Campus has to do with the fact that we have partners. They are from the States right now, but of course they may be in the future from other places. And they offer us certificates online so that right now, 100% of our degrees can be linked to an international online certificate, which means that our students, they add more credits to their studies in a flexible way, in a very convenient way, and they get a specialization from another partner. And we've got shorter options, we have larger options, but it's a way to try to adapt also their interest a specific field. So sometimes, for instance, they may be studying medicine, but they want to do a certificate of legal law, because also a doctor will have to deal with legal issues. Or you may study a certificate about statistics while you are studying, I don't know, pharmacy, for instance, you know. So we have those partners to offer these online certificates for our students. And this is a global campus, which means that you can choose to get not a degree, you know, like some kind of short certificate from another entity. And the other activity is the FEU Global Classroom. And in here we have mirror lectures, and we have the COILs, you know, these collaborative online international learning courses. And well, I will tell you later, in fact, how we decided to choose the pioneers that were going to be the first ones to start working on this global classroom, because we did it in a scientific way. In fact, we chose very well our pioneers, because we thought that it was easier to convince the faculty members about doing it if they were convinced by other members before. So in a way, instead of imposing, you know, from the executive committee of the university, this type of strategies, we used mates to try to make the ones that were talking about the pros of this type of online internationalization, and it works. But I will tell you later.
Thank you, Noah. We've been focusing so far in mobility and fostering opportunities for our students to be part of an international project, classroom, collaboration, challenge. But what about faculty? That's another big opportunity that we are sort of developing and taking advantage of throughout the pandemic. Let me give you an example. In Mexico, we've been almost 1.5 years in what we call flexible digital mobile format. In other words, online teaching. And we started exploring the opportunity to approach top faculty members in different universities, in different disciplines, and ask them to teach as global visiting online faculty. So we created this program, and today we have something like 140 faculty members all over the world that are teaching, not lecturing in one session, no, teaching a full program for credit to our students. Are you somehow taking also advantage of this opportunity to bring diversity in the faculty within your universities, Joe?
That's a great suggestion, actually, Ignacio, and this is a terrific opportunity to be learning from some of the real pioneers here. I have to say that for us at U of T, you know, the main effort this past year was really about getting our teaching online. We have 90,000 students across 3 campuses, and it was a very quick pivot. But I think that you really raised an interesting opportunity there in terms of our faculty, with respect to joining together with other faculty from around the world. And we are seeing more and more of that. You know, for instance, guest lectures, you know, with this kind of technology now, it's so easy to invite an author of an article, you know, who's writing about European Union politics, rather than reading the article. We can invite the author in and have that author speak to the class. You know, in my own teaching, for instance, we've had heads of NGOs from around the world who've been able to participate as well. So I think that technological link up is something that is really transforming how we deliver curricular material. I'd also just want to add too, I think one of the important things with respect to faculty is the continuation, and I would say even intensification, if you will, of research collaboration. There was some thought in the early stages of the pandemic, particularly among our graduate students, there was some thought that with the pandemic, our international research and graduate teaching collaboration would come to a halt, or would certainly slow down. And I think in the early stages, there was that sense. But very quickly, we found, no, actually, with the kinds of technological platforms that we're discussing now, there are plenty of opportunities to continue developing graduate research modules or training modules, plenty of opportunities to continue to do actual field research. So in the past year, the University of Toronto actually has developed new partnerships, new international doctoral clusters in which our doctoral students are working together with doctoral students elsewhere, and continuing to do, frankly, field research. So in my own work in the REACH Alliance, without having been on an airplane, we've still continued to do our quote unquote field research in places as far as Thailand. And we've been doing interviews, informant interviews with key stakeholders in Thailand. We have a research project that I'm mentoring in Guatemala, in which, again, our researchers are interviewing key stakeholders and informants there in Central America, as well as another project in Western Africa. So the point is actually we've been able to continue to do a lot of the work that we do at the university, things that we thought we would have to stop. And in fact, we're continuing, and I would say we're even deepening and accelerating. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's a great angle, also including research, and we've seen a lot of opportunities and how increasing collaboration throughout the pandemic, online, and also interdisciplinary, bringing faculty from different schools and disciplines. So definitely something that will remain in the near future. And talking about remaining in the near future, something we are considering at Tec de Monterrey, we sort of taking decisions and researching a little bit is after the pandemic. At some point, Omicron allows and the next variations of this COVID thing, we hope that we will come back to something not similar to what we used to do, but with a big chunk of, let's say, face-to-face or presentiality, people in the classrooms. But of course, we were doing some online and some hybrid learning before the pandemic. Then we moved into 100% online. Now we're moving into hybrid. At some point again, we will be sort of mixing different modalities of teaching. And taking decisions on that, how do you guys see, let me start with Ainhoa, the percentage of activity that your university will be covering in the regular offering of different disciplines, but also in the online global classroom or COIL programs in the future? You guys thinking on 10, 20, 30%, giving more flexibility, combining online, remote, hybrid, and face-to-face models? You thinking about that already or taking decisions? Maybe Ainhoa or Joe. I got numbers instead of your faces, so I don't know if the question was very difficult or...
If you go on doing this type of online internationalization. So a few years ago, excellency was based just on research, as Joe mentioned, research and doing COILing, for instance, for researching with other colleagues was important. But from our point of view, apart from research, we should consider that excellency also has to do with innovation at educational level. So right now, we have a system in which at FEU we are evaluated every year, and you may be a good professor or an excellent professor. And being an excellent professor, apart from depending on the results of the service of your students and your research and so on, may also be an attribute that you get taking into consideration the type of innovation that you have introduced in your class. So it may be done through a COIL, but not any kind of COIL. So here we have to prepare a very good syllabus. We may also have to add, for instance, sometimes professionals or even NGOs or businessmen, other type of people that are going to work together with the two professors. You may also include the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So you have to add additional ingredients to make it very, very special. And this is what we are working on, because we really want to continue working on those experiences. And apart from it, we want to make professors do it not just as a question that has to do with volunteering. We want them to understand that it's important, that this change is very important, because they are improving the academic profile and the future opportunities of the students. So this is why when we started doing this, we decided to think about who should be the first, okay? And then one idea came to my mind at that time. I remembered a book written by Hirschman in the 70s, and he was explaining how organizations work. And he said that there are always, like 3 cases. You've got exit, voice, and loyalty. So as any company, of course, in a university, we have executive committees, we have workers, and we have clients, which are the students. And we always have, among those groups, people that when you talk to them about change, they exit. They decide to leave, to quit. They do not want to stay there. There are also people who complain, they raise their voice, okay? And we thought about, hey, we are going to have students or even executives or professors that will say, I do not want to do this, and they will complain because they ask for extra money, extra rights, whatever. But the rest remain loyal. And then we decided to start these new policies with the loyal. Okay, so we had to identify the loyalty inside our campuses, and then we gave the training to those loyals. They were the ones who started the pilot projects. Last year, we developed 75 foils, and it was our first year, so we are very proud of it. And the second stage had to do with listening to the ones that were raising their voice. And this is why we decided to include innovation in the classroom as a way to get the excellency. So give me a good project, give me a nice idea, make it real in your syllabus, and then you may get this excellency. So now we are on this stage 2, in which we have officially recognized this excellency through the innovation profile. And then we are thinking about making it greater in the sense that everyone, even the exiters, the ones that want to leave, they are, we win over them and we include them so that it's a reality in all the subjects. And this is the stage 3 in which we are working for. And probably, of course, we will not get it, from one day to the other one. But the truth is that more people are coming to our webinars for training them. We are facilitating mixing people and finding colleagues from a very institutional way, because the vice rector is giving you all the support, all the help, and so on. So we think that if today is a project at a minor scale, we want to escalate it and make it real so that all our students, at least once, they have this experience in any degree. Okay, this is our main goal.
Thank you, thank you, Ainhoa. What about Joe? Your vision at Toronto University on this? Remember, I was originally asking about, what percentage of hybrid or online will remain in your educational model after the pandemic, whenever this happens, hopefully soon? Do you have a vision on that? Thoughts, groups,
Ignacio, I think you're on mute there.
I'm on mute.
Ignacio, you're on mute.
Oh, good. How about now? Can you hear me? Equipo, estamos en mute. Can you hear me now? No?
Sorry, we couldn't hear you, so
yeah, I know.
We do not know what's the question.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to fix it. Equipo, no nos escuchan. How about now?
Right.
Now? All right. Gracias. Okay, so sorry about that, some technical issues. No, I was asking Joe your vision on that, and remember my original question was, have you thought of what percentage of either online or hybrid mix in the modality, in the delivery of education will you have after the pandemic, whenever that happens? You thinking on that at the University of Toronto?
Yeah, that's a great question. We, as Ainhoa noted, with her institution, we are an in-person institution, and that's the aim. So currently, just over half of our teaching and courses this past semester has been in person. Our aim is to get that close to 90% come January. Omicron, of course, dependent, but that's the aim. So I'm not, the question about what percentage of our delivery moving forward will be in what certain kind of modality is not really a figure that we're considering. I think the best way to think about coming out of COVID and online internationalization is to really think about the net positive or the net gains that are going to accrue. So rather than reapportioning our teaching and our teaching resources, I think the opportunity here is to think about completely new opportunities that are emerging, that are on top of and in addition to the primarily in-person institution that we are. And it's precisely these kinds of conversations, and I would like, if we were in person, of course, we'd be going for a meal afterwards and we could sit down and talk for hours, because we would learn best practices from one another, right? Just listening right now and hearing about what your institutions are doing. I'm taking notes because I'm thinking these are things that are not only going to provide ideas in terms of how we innovate on the delivery piece, but also innovations on the pedagogy, right? In terms of real curricular innovation here that can result from this. I'll just give you some examples of some of the best practices that I've heard that I would love to integrate, not again as in a zero-sum way in terms of taking away from our otherwise in-person experience, but adding to the U of T experience. One is to continue with these global classrooms. I love the point that Ainoa raised about internationalization at home. You know, how do we continue to provide a global learning experience without requiring students to get on an airplane? But that being said, if we were able to develop a global classroom and leverage these technology platforms and then use that as an accelerant or a gateway into an international learning experience, into an opportunity where our students then say, I want to be in Spain, or I want to be in Mexico, and I want to actually continue on with these conversations or continue on carrying out this research. That would be a great way to introduce students to what could be a much more involved and much more elaborate and robust international learning experience. A couple other best practices that we're learning about. One is the opportunity for lifelong learning. All of our institutions are institutions that are deeply embedded within our communities. We service, of course, our undergraduates, and we service our graduate students, but there are literally, millions of community members that seek and look to our universities for lifelong learning opportunities. Can we then imagine using these technological platforms to provide international learning experiences for lifelong learning opportunities, for lifelong learners? And adding to that, another best practice that we are exploring now and hearing more about are micro-credentials, right? Again, the university is in a terrific position to be offering micro-credentials to not only our students, our alum, but also community members. And here again, the opportunity now is to leverage these technology platforms, online pedagogy, to provide a whole new suite of micro-credentials that we otherwise would never have been able to do. There's a whole new way of reaching our alumni who are around the world to engage in continued micro-credential learning as well. So in short, Ignacio, to your question is that I'm not sure that we're thinking about what portion of our teaching in the future will be X versus Y, but rather how do we take online internationalization and completely supplement and create value add to the learning experience at our university. And I suspect it's the same at yours as well.
Well, thank you, Joe. That's a great few practices you share with us. There is something that definitely our students, our faculty, our communities went through or learned throughout the pandemic, and they're going to be demanding more and more flexibility. Flexibility is not only what you're learning, but when you're learning, how you're learning, where you're learning, from where you're learning. So this gets together all your ideas about micro-credentials, alternative credentials, platforms, lifelong learning. And coming back to international, I have my team here at the Vice Rectory of International Affairs, and if I don't come back to international, they will be quite demanding at the end of the session. So coming back to that again, let's give you a number. At the Strategic Plan 2025 Tecnológico de Monterrey, there's one of the 7 items is the global, which means broader internationalization from our students' perspective, learning, faculty, research, positioning, also getting closer to large organizations, multinationals, multilaterals all over the world. And it comes with one main KPI. 100% of our students will go through an international experience throughout their degree. If we go back to undergrad, we're talking about 55,000 people that need, we want, it's required, it's healthy, go abroad. So either we start thinking wider on what does it mean, how technology and internationalization work together, or it's something we will never be able to achieve. So we have like 9 minutes left, and we're starting to get some Q&A from the audience. Let me check my WhatsApp. So I have a couple of them. What I suggest, for some questions, I will point out to one of you guys. I know our Joe, some others for both. If you agree, let's do this speed dating process, so very straight to the point so we take more questions. Let me go to the first one for both of you. Remember, speed dating technique. So, do you think that online internationalization formats could be a tool also for internationalizing the curriculum? Maybe Ainhoa, you want to go brief on this and come back to Joe?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely it can be a way to internationalize to your curriculum. It's like instead of being a visiting professor at the University of whatever, you are an online visiting professor. Why not? Definitely. In our case, we have considered that it's part of your curriculum and that every year you can be tested internally and be recognized for this, even for promotions. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Joe?
I agree 100%. It's the online internationalization platform is not only innovation in delivery, but there's a lot of room for pedagogical innovation. And there's real challenge, I think, is in how do we do this with the STEM fields. I think there's some real creativity that's going to be required there. Easy to do, I think, in the social sciences and humanities. How do we get our engineers and science students thinking about this as well?
Thank you. We have a few more questions, actually a lot, so I will try to select a couple more, maybe three. One is about faculty and participation in these international online initiatives. How do you motivate, how do you incentivize faculty to be part of this? Maybe we follow the same, Ainhoa and then Joe?
Well, first of all is to make them understand what it means. We are very transparent, not only about the pros, also about the cons. We explain in a very transparent way that it means training. There is a need for training, there is a need for time because it's time consuming. And that it may happen that the first time they do this type of activities, their surveys, sometimes they may be not that good, you know? So it's a challenge. But that we know that it's a challenge, it's a process of innovation, it takes time, but it's going to be better for them, better for the students. And once they understand it, and once they see the example of other colleagues, and once they even see some real cases, because sometimes we invite other teachers to see the dynamic of a co-ed class, then they are convinced and they start. And it's a process. So yeah, it's not that easy, but I think that transparency is very important for sure.
I would just say, I mean, I think that the benefits of online internationalization in global classrooms are very clear. I don't think that we need to demonstrate the value proposition there. I think the challenge always is how do we make this as easy as possible for faculty? And so having a real sense of the faculty as being the user and making the process as user-friendly as possible is very helpful. Tec de Monterrey, I think, has done an amazing job of developing the back-end technology so that when I work with Gustavo, there's a whole template there. It's very easy for us to use. It's very easy for us to input information and so forth. And that then reduces the transaction cost to me as an instructor, makes me more likely to use that platform again. So I think anything we can do to make things simpler for the faculty member is an incentive in and of itself.
From our perspective, this was definitely one of the big challenges. All of you attending this Congress have been listening to what we've been doing in the last few years about designing and implementing Tec 21, Tec 21st, Tec de Monterrey educational model. And it has been, and still, because we are not done, it's extremely demanding for the teams, for the schools, for the professors that are in charge of the design and then of the delivery. On top of that, we are asking getting to the global classroom program and some other initiatives. So at the end, it's a bottleneck somehow, and need to react as universities to offer, again, to create some incentives for our faculty to get into that. As an example, I was mentioning we are offering this next term 120 global classrooms. Jose Manuel Paez, our Vice Director of International Affairs, the whole team, and the schools have been working on that, selecting the topics, the areas, the partners, and then the faculty, convincing them to put all this together. So, I mean, extremely beneficial for faculty. I've been teaching in the last 30 years, maybe in some 35 countries. Once you feel it, the benefits that adds to your teaching and also to your development as a professional is very clear, but you got to convince them. Anyway, we move to one maybe final question, a little bit related to this. We were talking about convincing. Maybe convincing comes with some recognition. How are you foreseeing in the future to create some special type of faculty that goes into this international online or face-to-face experiences? Or are you aiming that 100% of your faculty will be involved in this type of experiences to foster internationalization? Do you recognize somehow, in an economic way, inside sort of international dean list, somehow this faculty, or you thinking about that? Ainhoa, please.
Well, in our case, we do it right now. So you, as I told you, you may get this recognition of the excellency. So if you get above 8.5 out of 10 in the student survey, then you may pass to this stage of excellency. And then here at the Vice Rectorate, we evaluate the type of projects developed in the classroom, and then we decide which are the teachers that get, or the professors that get this excellent, which has an economic complement that is, it's quite high. So it's a good reason for doing it, just to try it. We also have a special prize for the best one, and the team may get this special prize. And we also organize a ceremony in which we give this type of prizes, so that it's not only getting the prize or getting these compliments, it's also being clapped by the whole faculty, because you were the best and you have the opportunity to explain this process of innovation. And yeah, so we do definitely recognize it, because we are thinking about making it a reality for all the campuses and for everyone, so that for sure, if we could give the excellency to everyone through this project, would be great. But it's not only a question of doing it, it's also a question of doing it very seriously, because otherwise then we would devaluate, the value of this, and we want to make it a very, very serious experience.
Thank you.
Very quick answer from us. We haven't discussed any kinds of incentives now. We of course recognize innovative teaching through a variety of awards, but we haven't implemented anything like this. I think we're a little bit we're still developing some of the core concepts. It would be very interesting actually to develop a set of metrics as well in terms of teaching efficacy on the student experience side as well as on the supply side. So I think we're just beginning this now, but these are terrific ideas, and I'm certainly going to take them back to our shop.
Thank you both for your thoughts on this. I have like 1 minute. I got one last question. No time for answers from you guys, but it's I think a very nice way of closing this. The questions, two together from different people. It's online internationalization truly inclusive, meaning for people without the means to travel? I believe the answer is clearly yes, and this is one of the reasons also that we foresee that this type of offering will be part of our portfolio more and more decisively. And the second one is the future of education for less privileged in terms of economy and the availability of education. And I think all the universities are doing tons of things on this, and we're very concerned, because education is about developing leaders, and leaders are the ones that will bring us into a much better future. Just to close, a reminder that the Tec de Monterrey will launch Líderes del Mañana, a program in which 1,000 talented young people, girls and boys from all over Mexico, to have access to 100% of a scholarship to attend Tec de Monterrey. I know it's a little number on such a large situation of poverty and lack of opportunities, but I think this is not only a university, but an individual responsibility to attend this and to offer opportunities for those who don't have the access. So let me conclude thanking you here in the room and those online, and definitely muchas gracias, Ainhoa. Thank you very much, Joe. Great pleasure to having you here, have your friendship and your cooperation from both yourselves and your institution. Look forward to seeing you around the Congress, And thank you, everyone, for your interest and for attending. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
We would like to thank our panelists for the excellent participation, and we'd also like to thank you all for being here. We'll see you in our next mastery event, the Conversatory Transformation in University Teaching, Challenges and Opportunities in Post-Pandemic, at 10 hours, Central Mexico time zone. Thank you again.